YouTube, welcome back. We are back with another episode of Curated Topics, brought to you by Curated Sense LLC. So I apologize to you all. I have been gone for about 2 weeks. I have, as you all know, I'm working on some projects in the background, and so I have been quite busy. I thought that I was going to be able to put out the videos alongside of the projects that I was doing, but I was not. I apologize for that. I'll let you in on a little project that I've been working on. So I was a part of a 6-week voiceover class, and last week we were working on our final projects. Now, I know when it comes to, these videos and things like that, you all see the end result. So you all see, however long the video was or however long the piece of work is. But what isn't shown is the work that goes into the background. So I was working on my final piece for my voiceover class, and I ended up doing a whole lot more work editing that piece of work than I anticipated. So that is what took up a lot of my time, big chunk of my time, and getting those things together, making sure that they're right. Now, how many of you all are like me? I'm a perfectionist, so I'm trying to make sure that it's perfect. We had to do 2 different recordings. We had to do a raw recording, pause. That's where you just record the voice, no edits or anything like that. I was trying to get my raw recording to be perfect in line with the requirements, and it's possible to do, but I thought that I misunderstood the directions. So I'm thinking, okay, our raw recording has to fit inside those requirements, and then we can do edits on it to clean it up and all of that. And that was in fact not how it goes. That was not how it goes. So once I learned that, I had to start over again and get things going. But I came out with a really nice piece of work. So I am now certified to do the technical side of voiceover work. I know how to set up a home studio, so I can go into my little home studio, make a piece of work, and I can do the editing to make sure that it fits the correct standards and all of that. And I am certified now to do that. So if anybody out there needs some voiceover work, holla at your boy. I actually, when I turned in my final project, I received feedback from my instructor that my piece of work actually could be put out as a demo. So I might release that. You never know. I might put that out for you all. Anybody who's looking for some voiceover work, but I also might just put that out to share what I've been doing, share what I've been working on, things like that. I got to think of a creative way to do that. I might put the piece of work out and then have like some stock footage or something like that, so that it's, it has some context to it or something. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna work on it. I might release it. I don't know yet. But alongside that, I've also been working on my businesses. I have also been working on a campaign that I'm a part of. If you have seen that video, it is called I Need Your Help. Go and check it out. I still do need your help. This event for Visionary of the Year is going on until May 15th. So please support. I will have some special gifts for people who support. There's different levels and things like that. So check that video out. You'll get all the information there. But as far as what I've been doing for my business, so you all know I have the candle business. I have been doing a bit of marketing on my own, but I've been looking for, just some advice from some people and things like that on how I can increase my marketing, how I can make my business more legitimate in the game, all those sorts of things. So like I said in the last video, talking about, expanding your network and utilizing your network, I went and I utilized my network. I was in Columbus a couple weeks ago. This was actually a couple months ago. I ran into one of my old friends. I hadn't seen him in a while, and he has his own advertising company. They are doing very, very well. So he told me, hey man, schedule some time with me. We'll get together. I'll give you about a half an hour, just free consultation, and tell you about some things that you can do to increase your business, and you can go from there. And so I met with him last week as well, and I have started implementing some of the things that he has told me. One of which is get more Google reviews for the candles. So I have asked some previous customers to go out and put some Google reviews up. If you are watching this and you're a previous customer, please go over to the page, put some Google reviews. Now don't try to play me in the reviews. I got 10 reviews right now. They all 5 stars. I'm looking for past customers only. You know what I'm saying? Don't go out there trying to play me. I'm trying to keep the 5 stars going, but in all seriousness, trying to show that I'm putting out a good product and to get you all involved. We're working hard over here at Curated Sense LLC, just trying to push forward and show that, hey, we have a great product out here. So that leads me into the first part of the show. You know how we got to start it off. We are doing candle of the evening. What we got here tonight, we got this bottle right here. Now I know y'all can't see those words, but this is a Corazon bottle. This is a tequila bottle. If you're going to drink, please do so responsibly. But we've got the Corazon bottle, and what do we have in here today? What we got in here? It smells so good, so good. This right here, this is our most popular scent. It is the Butt Naked. Now, if you have seen this show at all, one, you know that this is the most popular scent on the site, but also this scent smells so good, and I've told you about it before. This is a perfume scent. It's fashioned after the Victoria's Secret perfume. It is a very tropical, sweet, fruity and floral mixture. It has notes of strawberry, melon, peach, and those tropical florals with a little hint of coconut on the back end. This smells so good. This makes me feel like it's summertime. I'm on the beach and I have a nice cold drink ready waiting for me. Come check us out. Come check this scent out. So I actually made this. I made this as one of my giveaways for a very, very special supporter. So this will be going out to them. This was a giveaway as a part of that Visionary of the Year thing that I am doing. So please make sure you go check that video out as well. It's called I Need Your Help. And yeah, come check us out. CuratedSenseLLC.com. Come find out why this scent is so popular. Come find out. This is our most popular scent, and you heard it here first. This scent is amazing. So come check us out. Let's get started with the show. So I am going to actually skip the sports portion for tonight. Tonight's topic is a little bit of a long one. It is pretty lengthy. Super duper pause. So I'm going to skip the sports for this evening's episode. I think what I'm going to do is do the sports in its own video. And I think I'm going to do that moving forward for the next couple of videos. The next couple of videos we have are going to be some pretty lengthy ones. Pause again. So I think I'm just going to take the sports section out, and I will do that as its own video. I'm going to talk about the Cavs and this first round from who knows where, but I'll leave that for its own video. So let's get straight into the topic. What are we talking about tonight? Tonight we are talking about self-awareness strategies. And we're going to get into quite a few of them. But let's start by talking about self-awareness again. To be self-aware is to know yourself and how you truly are. How do you know when you're self-aware? Well, we all have some level of self-awareness, right? Now, I hope we do. Nobody has no self-awareness. Some of us have higher levels of self-awareness than others. And that's okay. We're all unique. We're all our own people. But let's be real. There's no such thing as like the self-awareness police. No one is out there gonna take your self-awareness card. There's no one out there like, hey, yo, dog, I need that self-awareness card, dog, because you ain't noticing some things. I need to take that card. Nobody is out here like that. On the flip side, no one's out here to congratulate you on suddenly becoming self-aware. Now, you might have some people who take notice, but nobody's like throwing you the self-awareness party. You know what I'm saying? There's no self-awareness police. So how do you know? Well, here's the thing. Self-awareness, it's a continuous journey, and it's deeper than knowing when you like to get up in the morning. It's deeper than knowing that you're someone who doesn't really like to make decisions. It's deeper than knowing what your preferences are, knowing what your favorite color is or your favorite food. It requires you to peel back the layers of yourself. It's similar to an onion. The true self lies beneath the layers. Now, anybody remember the movie Shrek? Remember how he compared himself to an onion, and he would say, well, you got to peel back the layers to really get his personality. That's a real thing. That is a real thing. You have to get past that surface level stuff, that surface of the onion, but to peel back those layers to really see who you truly are, to really get into those deeper emotions, those deeper thoughts and feelings, to see who you are as a person, who you are as a whole. Now let me ask you this, and I'm gonna have to say, I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on this question. Dave Chappelle, this is one of my favorite skits. How many of y'all watched the Chappelle Show? I'm really aging myself here, but I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, I did not think I was gonna hit that high note. Pause. But anyway, how many of us have those layers to us, right? And we use those layers in order to protect us. Once again, I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that. There's definitely some times where I have utilized my layers to protect myself. Pause. But for real, how many of us have layers to us that we use to protect us? Protect us from what? Protect us from insecurity. Protect us from vulnerability. Protect us from emotional damage. How many of us have those things? You really have to be comfortable with the fact that you're peeling back these layers in order to increase your self-awareness. We have to peel back those layers in order to truly find ourselves, to find our true selves. Not just the self you like, not just the self you're comfortable with, but to really find your true self. Now, as you're peeling back those layers, you're going to have to be comfortable with what you find. You're going to have to be comfortable with what you find. That's the good, that's the bad, that's the ugly. And if you aren't comfortable with it, work to change it. When you find those things that you aren't comfortable with, work to change it. Since we're humans, we are emotional beings, so your emotions are always going to be a part of the equation. Managing yourself and your relationships, that means you have to be aware of both the positive and the negative feelings that you have. We talked about that comfortability. You're going to have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're going to have to figure out that, okay, this is something where it might be something about myself. I might not like it, but I am taking note of it. I'm becoming aware of it. So then I can do something about it, right? And when you look at both the positive and the negative feelings that you have, when you look at the positive and the negative emotions and thoughts, when you are looking at yourself in totality, that's when you're getting the full range of your emotions. That's when you're getting the full spectrum of who you are. When you don't take time out to notice those things, and when you don't take time out to understand your emotions, they kind of have a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. I would go as far to even say this happens even when you are aware, even when you are working on it. You could be working on yourself right now, and boom, you get hit with a situation out of the blue, and now you're in that emotional crisis mode. You didn't anticipate it. You were caught off guard by the situation, and now you're right back there, even though you have been working on it. That just goes to show, well, you're human. We all make mistakes, but your emotions serve a purpose. Yes, you hit crisis mode, but you hit crisis mode because something is going on. Something took place all of a sudden. And so even when you're working on that stuff, even when you're working on yourself, working on becoming more aware, you can still have moments. You can still have moments. I would just say, be patient with yourself, give yourself some grace. As I said before, your emotions, they're there to bring something to your attention. They have a purpose. And a lot of the times, your emotions are going to persist until you take notice. Until you recognize what's going on with yourself, your emotions are going to stay there. And they're going to stay in that same state. So whatever it is you're feeling, you're going to continue to feel that until you address it. And here's the thing. When you don't address it, when you're not taking note of it, that's when the damage can accumulate. Hopefully you notice before the damage becomes too great. But you really want to make sure you take note, because you don't want things to start to snowball. That leads me into the next point. It can be kind of unsettling to face the truth about who you really are. And that can be the good, that can be the bad, and certainly the ugly. It can be very uncomfortable to discover those things about yourself that you don't really like. Now let me ask you this, and I gotta plead the fifth on this too. How many of us don't really like talking about ourselves when it comes to the good things? We struggle with talking about ourselves. I don't think it's necessarily a confidence issue. I think it's just not wanting to come off as braggadocious. I never want to brag or seem like I'm bragging about who I am. I would rather let my actions speak and show you what it is that I'm good at. You know what I mean? How many of us are like that? But here's the thing. We have to start to learn how to talk about ourselves. I'll use myself as an example. When I told you all what's going on with me with the voiceovers and getting certified, I wouldn't say I've had a tough time, but I haven't shared that quite that much because I don't really like to talk about myself like that. I don't like to brag about all my accomplishments. But here's the thing. As I'm becoming more aware of myself and as I'm becoming aware of what it is that I'm trying to do, I recognize that I have to talk about it. I have to put it out there because that's the only way it's going to move forward. Let me get back to it real quick. Getting in touch with your emotions and understanding who you are, it takes incredible honesty and courage. It really does. Now, I think that goes for the good and the bad, especially the bad, but I also would say that it goes for the good as well. Like I said, I don't really like to brag about myself. So it takes a certain level of courage even to talk about yourself if you're like that. How many of you all have been in an interview where they're like, so tell me about yourself? And you're sitting there and you're like, and you're thinking, and it's not even so much that you don't know what to say. It's just, well, I don't want to just list off everything I've ever done. And then now I just seem like I'm, overly confident or I'm arrogant about myself. But you got to learn the art of the humble brag. And we'll talk about that in another video. But, learning the art of the humble brag. And even that, it takes a level of honesty and courage and confidence, because you don't want to come off in a way that makes you look negative simply because you're trying to be overly positive about yourself. Now, when it comes to, understanding who you are and who you are in the full spectrum of yourself, I would just say you got to be patient with yourself. You got to be patient with yourself. Give yourself grace and give yourself credit for the small victories. I'm going to bring this back to myself. I was telling you all about what I had going on. And part of that was because, I got to give myself credit for the small victories. Me getting certified, that's a small victory. It's a step in the right direction in some ideas that I have had. It makes me feel good because I'm actually working on something that not only did I have as an idea for myself, but I've had others say, hey, you should try doing voiceovers. You should try doing this. You have a very nice voice. You should do this. So I went out. I feel good about the fact that I went out and I finished this class. I finished it and I got great feedback on my final project. Was told I can use it as a demo, but now I'm starting to see the ball rolling. And that leads me into my next point. Slow motion is better than no motion. In the case of what I got going on, I'm trying to get my stuff up off the ground. Well, in order to get your stuff up off the ground, you've got to flap your wings. You've got to start the propeller. Whatever analogy you want to use, but you have to put yourself in position to start moving. And sometimes that starts with the humble brag. Sometimes that starts with putting yourself out there, letting people know what you got going on, letting people know what your accomplishments are, letting them know what checkpoints you have reached, what milestones, and all of that. And then you'll start to see the support rolling in. That was one reason I asked for the reviews from past customers, so that people can see we are putting a good product out here, right? It's not necessarily for me to just say, but other people are now confirming that, hey, yes, this is a great product. What you have is good. And I've got 10 reviews so far. This is incredibly uncomfortable for me to talk about. I'm just playing. But like I said, this is to get the ball rolling. Slow motion is better than no motion. Give yourself credit for those small victories. Every small victory that you have, that's a little bit further, that's a little bit better. You are becoming 1% better. You're getting to being the best version of yourself. And that is much better than being stagnant and stuck in the same place. Now, to answer the original question, how will you know when you become self-aware? You will know that you are more aware when you start to notice things about yourself that you never knew before. And I would go as far as to say you'll start to know that you're more aware when you start to see things that not only you didn't know before, but maybe you didn't acknowledge before either. That thing your mom and dad tried to tell you about, that thing your girlfriend tried to tell you about, your friends tried to tell you about. You was like, nah, they don't know what they talking about. And now you're looking back and you're like, okay, maybe I am a little bit that way. I'm just using that as an example. But you'll start to know when you start to realize, okay, maybe I do have some of these qualities. Maybe it is time for me to start talking about myself, putting myself out there. When you peel back those layers and you get into the deeper things about yourself, that's when you start to become more self-aware. And you'll realize it. You won't need the self-awareness police to tell you. You won't need them to give you your self-awareness card. You'll just see it. You'll have it. You'll give it to yourself. You'll be like, I have my card now. Put it in my pocket right there. You'll know. Now let's get on to some of these strategies. We have 15 self-awareness strategies. It's a lot, I know, but a lot of these are going to be helpful. Remember, in the last video, we talked about how many to pick. Pick 3. I would challenge you, pick 5. Try to do 5. But we're going to go through them here and we're going to talk about each one a little bit. So let's get started. Number 1, stop looking at your feelings as good and bad. I hope that hit home for somebody. Stop looking at your feelings as good and bad. It is in our human nature to simplify things. We want to label everything. We want to label everything and label nothing at the same time. I can't fit in a box, and then you got all these letters telling you what you are and what's this and what's that. And I'm not taking a shot at any community or anything like that. I'm speaking just in general terms. We like to say, you can't generalize me, and then we go and put labels on everything we have. It's in our nature. We label our emotions as good and bad. Why? Because it's easy. It is easy. But here's the thing about it. This can hinder your self-awareness by limiting your understanding of yourself and your emotions. Emotions are deeper than just good and bad. And as I said before, there's a reason that they are there. There's a reason that you have emotions. They serve a purpose. You're feeling sad one day. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it still serves a purpose. Whatever situation is going on, it called for you to then feel sad. Maybe it's called on you to potentially do something about it. Maybe it's just something you have to go through. Same with the good. You're happy for a reason. Something excited you. Something made you smile. You recognize that, and then your reaction is to be happy about it. It serves a purpose. Let's use a different example. Most people would label guilt as a bad emotion, right? And why is that? Because nobody wants to feel guilty. You do not want to feel that at all. But what does that do to you? Feeling guilty, you might beat yourself up for feeling that way. You might beat yourself up for feeling that way, and you will do whatever it takes to get rid of it. Now, your guilt might be for a purpose. What if you did something wrong? You're guilty for a reason, because deep down, you know you did something wrong. So you feel bad about it. You feel some kind of way about it. It's not necessarily bad that you feel that you're going through that feeling. That's not the bad part. The bad part is how you feel because you did something wrong. On the flip side, when we feel good emotion, like excitement, right? We let that run wild. We want to keep that going. We get pumped. We get hyped up. We get lit. We feed off of that energy. We feed off of that energy of being excited. And we will do anything to keep that energy going. Now, this can actually be problematic. I would go as far as to say it could even be detrimental. But why? It's a good emotion. Yes, but how many times have you been feeling that good emotion and it led to you having a problematic reaction? It led to you doing something, you want to celebrate, but then you celebrate just a little too much, or you do something that you regret. You were riding that high, you were riding that excited energy, and you allowed it to take you about your hookup to now where you're doing something that you don't normally do. You see, these are the downfalls to attaching labels to your emotions. These are some of those downfalls. Let's talk about some other ones. Judging your emotions, it keeps you from truly understanding them. And that judgment can oftentimes add more emotion and pile things up in the terms of the guilt. If you're feeling guilty about something, you start judging yourself for feeling guilty about something, and then you're feeling bad on top of the guilt because you're upset about being guilty about it. It's a cycle. It is a cycle, and it's just it don't even make no sense. It's just piling on from this direction. Pause. Super pause. But it is doing nothing but adding to that negative situation. When you suspend your judgment, when you say, you know what, I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to let myself feel these emotions. When you allow yourself to feel your emotions and go through them, you let them run their course, and then they don't fester. Okay, you might have felt guilty for a moment. All right, I feel guilty. I'm going to apologize to the person, and then we're going to let it go. You're not letting that stuff pile on. You're not letting that stuff fester. Number 2, watch for the ripple effect. Y'all know where I'm going with this. So what happens when you drop a rock into a body of water? It ripples in every direction, right? Your emotions are the rocks, and they create ripples throughout the various aspects of your life, especially on other people. Your emotions, those are the primary drivers behind your behavior. So it's very important that we understand them. It's also important that we understand how they affect your behavior, but also how your behavior then affects the people around us. Now, I'm going to use this as an example. I've actually had this happen to me. How many of you all have had this happen to you? You've been at work, right? Manager comes in, he or she starts yelling at an employee in front of everybody, making a whole scene. Now, everybody else in the office is on edge, walking on eggshells, because they're like, oh, well, we can't piss the manager off. We can't do this. We can't do that. The manager might be in their office thinking, okay, cool, I made an example out of that person. But what they really did is they put a damper on everybody else, and it might make everybody else less effective at their job. If you're at your job and you're feeling like you're walking on eggshells, you're now afraid to take that risk that might be necessary for an effective job. To get those effective results, sometimes it takes the occasional risk. Sometimes it takes, that person willing to go the extra mile and all those sorts of things. But when you have now put everybody on heightened alert, it can actually take away from the success of the team. We have to realize our emotions are powerful weapons. They're very powerful. And the effects that they have, it's not always instantaneous. Now, in the last example, that might be instantaneous. You can see it, rub off on people quite immediately. But a lot of the times, the effects that our emotions have on people, they can be gradual and constant. And then that's what leads to that maximum effect. That's what leads to that maximum effect. When you throw a rock in a pond and it ripples, right? It doesn't just ripple one time. It ripples multiple times until everything settles. Until everything settles, it ripples, and it is continuous. So you have to think about that in terms of your emotions. When you have like an outburst like that where you're yelling at somebody, it's not just that initial wave of things. It is now like radiating at the people around you. How many of you all, I'm guilty of this too, I plead the fifth. That might be the title of today's video. I plead the fifth. How many of us have had a bad day? And it's one of them types of bad days where you just can't shake it. And no matter what you do, even when you try not to push it off on other people, you still push it off on other people. You still push it off on other people. These are parts of the things that we're talking about. That's that ripple effect at work. It's still radiating out to others. So the key to observing the ripple effects of your emotions, watch closely how they impact other people immediately. And then, if you're still around those same people, watch how they affect those people in a longer term. Use that information as a guide for how your emotions affect a wider circle and the amount of time after those emotions are unleashed. Now, I want you to think about this, right? Our emotions are so powerful. One negative reaction that you have with somebody can completely damage your relationship with them or even ruin it. Just one. That's how powerful our emotions are. Sometimes it takes an incredible amount of time to repair the relationship after the damage is done. Usually takes multiple positive efforts, and people still remember what happened and how you made them feel. Sometimes you never live it down. That's how powerful your emotions are. This shows how delicate relationships can be and the importance of knowing how to manage them. I talk about this all the time. Me and my friends, we done been through some stuff together. It ain't always been good. Ain't always been good. Sometimes it's been some bad things, and we have had times where, we've had to repair some things. But it's been singular events that caused that kind of rift. Not really any like constant things, but a singular event changed the course of your relationship with somebody. So you have to take that into account, that ripple effect really can run deep. That ripple effect is very important. So understanding the ripple effect is going to take some time, and it's going to take deep reflection on your emotions and your behavior. You're going to have to ask others how you affected them. This is incredibly uncomfortable. Incredibly. This is going to take some real courage. That part right there, asking people how you affected them, especially if it's something where, things did not go well. Woo! That is going to take some courage. It's also going to take a level of accountability. It's going to take a level of maturity, and it's going to take a level of calm. You're going to have to be real calm because you don't know how you affected the other person. And the other person, they might have some tough things to say to you. They might have some real tough things to say to you. They might get emotional when they say it to you, and it's going to be in your best interest to stay calm. This is the information you're asking for, so you got to give them grace. You got to let them feel their emotions and let them address it how they're going to address it. And that's incredibly difficult. I know it is. I know it's uncomfortable, but in order to increase that self-awareness, that might be a step that you have to take. It just might be. I plead the fifth again. I've had to do that before. Was not fun. Not fun at all. But it was something that I felt like I needed to do, especially with that person, because I'm thinking of a specific instance right now. I'm not going to get into it, but I felt like we were having a misunderstanding, and therefore if I asked them how I affected them, we could clear it up. And we ended up being able to clear it up. Now, it didn't repair the relationship, and you have to be okay with that too. You have to understand that it might not repair the relationship, but at least you can come to an understanding. Number 3, lean into your discomfort. I thought that was a good segue after the last section, but lean into your discomfort. This can be the biggest obstacle to increasing self-awareness. I'd go as far to say it is the biggest obstacle to increasing your self-awareness. No, none of us want to be uncomfortable. None of us want to do that challenging, hard thing. And to be quite honest with you, I plead the fifth again, we tend to avoid things that cause us discomfort, especially when it's coming from us. We don't want to recognize this as being part of who we are, but here's the tough truth. This is a part of who we are. We avoid these things because they can sting. They can be that little bee sting right there, right to the chest. But here's the thing about it. When you avoid those things, when you avoid discomfort, it's really just a temporary fix. It's really short term, and you can't manage yourself correctly if you're ignoring all the things that you need to change. You're never going to become that best version of yourself. You're never going to get any motion. Remember, we said slow motion better than no motion. By avoiding the things that make you uncomfortable, you're not getting any motion. So you have to learn to lean into your discomfort in order to get things rolling. I always say be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm going to use myself as an example again. Last couple of months, I'd probably say maybe since the beginning of the year started, I've really been leaning into doing things that are a little bit outside of my comfort zone. Now, it's not in a bad way at all. It's not in a bad way at all, but it's just I've been trying to do some things to expand my horizons, expand my skill sets and things like that. And I have to put myself out there a little bit. I wanted to do the voiceover class. I wanted to do the Visionary of the Year event that I'm a part of. That specifically was not something that I even really sought out. I was invited to join, and I said, you know what? I'm going to jump at the opportunity. I don't know anything about what I'm doing. I don't know how to do any of this, but I'm going to lean in. I'm going to give it a try. And you know what? At the very least, I can say I gave it a try. But I didn't avoid it. I didn't say, hey, you know what? I can't do it. I leaned into it. I said, you know what? I'm going to try something different, and I'm going to expand my horizons. And so that's what I did. Instead of ignoring a feeling, your goal should be to move towards the emotion. Lean into it and work through it. I would say do this for even the mild emotional discomfort. Like if you're bored, if you're confused or full of anticipation, lean into that stuff. If you're bored, lean into it. Find something to do. Use it. I am bored, so I have to go and do something. Don't use it to then go and do unproductive things, but use that to make yourself, more useful, more valuable. Go and find something productive to do to work through your boredom. Working through it helps you in the long run. I'm going to use another example. This one is going to be a doozy, but dealing with anxiety. We all get anxious, right? We all have those anxious moments. But when you're dealing with anxiety, working through anxiety can be incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Why? Because it's very unsettling. Being anxious It's the definition of being unsettled. How many of us, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. How many of us have felt almost incapacitated by our anxiety? You so anxious you can't do nothing, and we'll do any and everything in order to alleviate that anxiety, including make bad choices. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. I'll tell y'all about some of those stories at another time. I don't want to get sidetracked too far again. But how many of us have made choices where we've made these choices in response to anxiety and they ended up being bad ones, or they led to some bad things? How many of our choices that we made in response to anxiety, they were only temporary fixes? They were only temporary fixes, Okay, we didn't feel anxious for about 5 minutes, and then we end up, continuing that habit or making that a habit. We end up continuing that response because we're chasing that feeling of not being anxious anymore instead of just working through what we have going on. Here's one that's a real doozy. How many of our choices tend to lead to things that cause us more anxiety? Woo! Y'all don't hear me on that one. How many of us have made choices that tend to lead to things that cause more anxiety? Like I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. This episode is called I Plead the Fifth, because I know I've done it. I know I have. Working through anxiety, it will help you in the long run. Because why? Because it forces you to address what's making you anxious. Working through it is going to make you address it. You're going to have to become more self-aware of it. You're leaning into that discomfort and you're addressing it. You're facing it head on. Not only that, but you're going to learn constructive ways to cope during anxious moments. So when they try to poke their head at you again, you can say, nah, I've seen this before. And now you have ways to deal with those situations again. By working through it, by leaning into it, it's going to actually lessen the trigger. That shock and that surprise is now gone because you have now become aware of it. So you say, once again, you're hip to the signals. You see the red flags. You're like, nah. It's not going down that way. You're not catching me like that again. You got me one time, anxiety. You're not getting me that way again. When you work through it and you become aware of it, that's how you get to that result. If you just try to avoid it, it can pop back up on you. If you're out making choices that are not productive, it can pop back up on you, or you haven't learned how to deal with it. When you ignore working on an emotion, that sucks. Why? Because you miss the opportunity to do something productive with that emotion. You miss the opportunity for growth. And to be honest with you, when you ignore it, it really doesn't make the feelings go away. Think about it like this. When you had that irritating friend or irritating family member or whatever, and they sitting there and they just going la 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 la, knowing that they trying to piss you off, right? When you ignore them, you ignore them, but they're still there. They're still there doing it. When you learn how to work through it, when you address it, that's when hopefully they stop. But that's when you start to see those feelings go away. That's when you start to reach the growth. We need to discover what we're arrogant about. We need to address our arrogances. What do I mean by that? I mean the things that we dismiss as unimportant. Those things that we think we have a handle on. We think we got this. The things we think we have control of. What are some examples? Apologizing is weak. When we look at things like that, vulnerability is weak. This reaction or this behavior, it's not that big of a deal. I can just do blank and repair everything. Those distractions from feeling down. Now that's an important one. Those distractions from feeling down. When we do things to distract us from our emotional state, that can lead down to a path of insanity. Why is that? Because insanity, the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. When we distract ourselves from what it is that we're feeling, how can you expect to have a different result if that situation pops back up. It's not, because you didn't do anything to work on it. You just distracted yourself from it. So when it does eventually pop back up, when it does resurface, you're going to feel the exact same way. It's insane for you to think otherwise. If you were to say, oh, well, I'm just going to distract myself from feeling that guilt. I won't be guilty, ever again. No, because here's the thing. You're ignoring what happened. You're ignoring the role that you played. You're ignoring those things about you. And so now when they pop up again, it's going to be the exact same result. You're going to feel guilty again because you never addressed it in the first place. When you lean in, that's when you start to get the results that you want. And after leaning in a few times, you'll find that discomfort, it really isn't that bad. Sometimes it can be inspiring. Sometimes it can be even motivating and rewarding. You lean into the discomfort, you get up out of your comfort zone, and you actually accomplish something. It can feel pretty rewarding. Use myself again as an example. The voiceovers. Hell, doing this was uncomfortable. My first video, probably trash compared to this one. Sitting here and talking to a camera like there's other people in the room. Very nerve-wracking when you haven't done it ever. In my first video, I was like, man, what do I do? Do I look straight at it? Like, these are the thoughts going into my head. Now that I'm 35 videos in, it's a whole lot different, but I leaned into the discomfort. Said, you know what? That first time, that was a little bit shaky. I'm going to lead in. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to learn some other techniques. I took a voiceover class to increase my skills, to increase all of those things so that now I'm not as uncomfortable. And I've gotten good feedback, good responses. So now I'm feeling pretty good. That's the rewarding part of it. Finally, don't be afraid of your emotional mistakes. I've talked about this before. Don't be afraid of your emotional mistakes. They tell you what you can do differently. Don't be afraid of your mistakes in general. Mistakes are there for you to learn lessons. They're there for you to learn the lessons. So once again, give yourself grace, be patient with yourself, celebrate those small victories, but learn from your mistakes as well. Don't be afraid to make them. You gotta risk it for the biscuit. You gotta risk it for the biscuit. And by doing so, yeah, you might fall a couple of times, you might make some mistakes, but you also will learn. And that is the key to becoming more self-aware and increasing your emotional intelligence. Number 4, feel your emotions physically. When you have an emotion, what happens? You have electrical signals that travel through your brain, then your brain sends signals to your body, and then you can actually feel some things physically. When you're feeling bad or guilty or a little bit nervous, sometimes anxious, what do you get? Do you ever get that pit in your stomach? When you get a bad feeling about the day, do you ever feel it in your stomach? You're like, I'm not hungry right now. I got a pit in my stomach. I don't know what's going on, but something ain't right. I plead the fifth. I've had that before. When you're nervous, when you are nervous but in kind of an excited way. Let's say you got an interview or you're going on a first date. You ever felt butterflies? You ever get those butterflies in your stomach? You got that crush. She finally said, yes, we can go to the movies. Taking it back to like middle school, but you see what I'm saying. We all have those physical things that we feel in response to our emotion. What about the jitters? Anybody ever get jittery? My thing is, when I'm nervous, I kind of fidget a lot, especially with my fingers paused, but I fidget a lot. Some people, their muscles tense up. Have you ever been anxious and you have that fast or slow breathing? You ever get the sweats? Plead the fifth on that. I ain't telling y'all about that. But here's the thing. Because our body and our mind are connected, you're feeling those emotions physically. And by understanding how you react physically to various emotions, it can be an effective way to increase your self-awareness. When you sit, you start to think, okay, when I'm nervous, I feel this way. You start to see those signs from your physical body, and then you can register, okay, maybe I'm a little anxious. I'm over here jittering and stuff. What's going on? What's some techniques that you can use to do this. So try closing your eyes. Next time you're alone, you're just chilling in the bed or something like that. Try closing your eyes and think of times when you experienced various emotions. Think about when you were happy. What did you feel? How did your body respond to that? I know some people, when they get happy, they get jittery. Think about when you're excited. How did you feel? Did you get hyped up? Did you start breathing faster? Did you start talking faster? When you're sad, how did you feel physically? And then last but not least, the one we've been talking about, when you're anxious, how did you feel physically? Do you get the sweats? Do you jitter? Do you breathe faster, slower? Do you start to pace? Now, that's one of my things too. When I get anxious, I like to move around a lot. So I start pacing. And it's just a natural thing that I do physically. But I have come to learn, okay, I got to be aware of that. If I'm pacing around the room, I know that I'm feeling anxious about something. Take yourself into these emotions. When you're thinking about these various emotions, take yourself into a specific situation when you felt these emotions and take note of the physical changes that you experienced. Pay attention to all those things. Pay attention to your breathing, your heart rate, were your muscles tensed or were you relaxed? Were you nervous? Were you fidgeting? Were you sweating? Take note of all those things and then compare that to your resting state. Compare that to how you act physically when you're calm. Taking note of these two states, that's going to help you increase your self-awareness. Also, it's going to teach you about yourself. Physical changes, they're going to act as a warning sign for your emotional state. This is going to give you those red flags that you can see. And that's going to help you gain more control over them. It's going to help you gain more control over them. When you see, okay, I'm fidgeting, I'm doing this, I must be a little bit nervous. Let me start to do some things that help calm me down. That's how that goes. Number 5, know who and what pushes your buttons. I feel like all of these are very similar in their importance, but know who and what pushes your buttons. Now, we all got buttons. We all have them. Those are the pet peeves, the triggers, the irritations, all of those sorts of things. Let me ask you this. I plead the fifth. I'm going to just say that. I plead. I'm not even going to say I plead the fifth no more. I'm just going to say fifth. Fifth. How many of you all, you had that coworker or that acquaintance or that family member that you just can't stand? Soon as they walk in the room or say something, it's like, oh my God, that the whole mood has changed. The whole energy gets thrown off, everything. And it just straight up puts you in a funk. How many of you all have those? I'm going to go fifth on that one. I got more than one. Fifth. Fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth. Knowing who pushes your buttons and how. That's a critical component of self-awareness. Developing that ability to realize that, it helps you take control over the situation too. It helps you maintain your composure and calm yourself down. And I'm gonna add this. It helps you do that stuff even if it's just long enough for that person to leave. Fifth. If you can hold it together long enough for that person to leave, and then you can just let out a big old woosah, just whew, I'm glad they are gone. I'm thinking about somebody right now, and I'm not gonna put him out there. I don't dislike him that much to put him out there. But growing up, there was this kid, and we were all cool with each other's families and all of that. And he was just the one kid who even his own family didn't really like when he would come around to play. Pause. He just always had that energy about him where it's like, man, dude, you not even fun, man. You know what I mean? Like, you mess up the basketball game, you mess up the football game, you mess up everything because it's just part of his personality. It's part of who he was. And you had to learn how to manage his presence. You had to keep it together until he left. Because once he would leave, you could go back to having fun again. But if you engaged him in his foolishness, it would put a damper on the whole rest of the day. And we all knew it. So we would all, kind of tolerate him, or we would all just, when he was around, the level of fun would be at a minimum. And then as soon as he left, it would be at a maximum. That's all I can say. But we all knew that he would push our buttons. So we all knew how to kind of handle the situation. It wasn't always, the same. Sometimes you can handle the situation for as long as you can handle it. And other times it just be like, okay, look, we gonna deal with him until he leaves. And sometimes that's just how it has to go. This leads me to my question. And like I said, I'm done saying I plead the fifth. I'm just fifth. But how many of us would allow that person to get under our skin? Fifth. I did it before. Fifth. What is your response to them being in your presence? Do you obsess over it? Do you get instantly angry? Fifth. Does it change your whole day by bugging you? Fifth. Does it make you want to explode and blurt things out? Fifth. Addressing these questions, this is what's going to help you increase your self-awareness. And it's going to put things in perspective for you. Okay, I know that this person does this. I know that when they do this, this is my reaction. And when you address these questions, it's actually going to help you recognize what's going on, but also do something about it. You'd be like, you know what? The next time this person is around, I'm just going to be indifferent. I'm not going to let them take control over my emotional state, and then I got to have a bad day. Now, I know that is far easier said than done. It's going to take some practice. That's all I can say. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself grace. And I would say this, it's not going to work, it's not always going to work generally. This is where I would say pinpoint the people, pinpoint those situations that make you tick. And I mean, be very specific, because knowing the exact situations and the people that influence your mood, knowing those exact people that influence your mood, it will help you become more self-aware, and it will help you take control over the situation, take control over your emotions, and then you can avoid those negative outcomes. Here's the thing, our buttons are bound to be pushed. They're bound to be pushed. We all have buttons, and we all do, and they're gonna get pushed. But when you have that clear understanding of who the button pushers are, what the button pushers are, what what situations push your buttons, it makes the people and the situations less difficult to handle. It's less of a surprise, less shock value. And when you're aware, the triggers have less of an effect. Self-awareness is key. Like my boy KS says, self-awareness is sexy. So when you know, you can take control. And you will take your self-awareness a step further by discovering the source of your buttons. This is going to open doors for you in terms of managing your reactions to your triggers. I would even go as far as to say, jot down a list of your triggers and then start figuring out why. Start figuring out why they're your triggers. This is going to help you have better control. Number 6, watch yourself like a hawk. Watch yourself like a hawk, especially during those times that get the better of you. This is going to take a lot of reflection, but try your best to remain objective. Now, this is hard. This is hard. Why is this hard? Because remaining objective is not in our human nature. We know why we did stuff, but we're definitely going to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. We're going to have our own bias for ourselves, for sure. So remaining objective, that's going to be very difficult. When you're able to remain objective, it allows you to step out from under the control of your emotions and learn exactly what is needed to be done to create positive outcomes. Kind of how I said, you got to be open for feedback. You have to be objective, because that's how you're going to be your most open to producing those positive outcomes. You can practice by taking note of your emotions and your thoughts and your behaviors as those situations unfold. The goal is to slow yourself down. Take in all that is in front of you Pause. Super pause. Disclaimer pause. Take in all that is in front of you. Allow your brain to process all the information before you act. And here goes another question, and I'm going to say fifth on this. How many of us have acted without having all the information? I'm just going to let y'all marinate on that one. How many of us have acted without having all the information? That stands for fifth. When you got more information, did it change how you felt? Or did you stay in the same mood? When you got more information, were you embarrassed for not letting the situation complete? Or were you embarrassed for acting before you had all the information? Did your mood reluctantly stay the same? Sometimes we have those situations where we get into a mood, and especially if we didn't have all the information, then we get more information and we still feel that way, but it's because we initially let ourselves feel some kind of way when we could have just let all the information show up, and then we might not have felt that type of way. And then last question, what did you do to come back from that situation in that moment? How did you fix things? Given all the information, how did you fix things? Number 7, keep a journal about your emotions. I've talked about jotting things down and in some of the other sections. This one, hey, keep a journal about your emotions. I would definitely suggest this for the fellas out there. A lot of times we don't like to share things with other people. We like to keep things close to the chest. Jot them down. Nothing wrong with having a journal. Now for the ladies, I think they are a lot better at this than we are. Having a diary was a real thing for young ladies. I think that having a journal should be something that guys do, especially since we don't really like to share too much. I think that's the biggest reason. But have a journal, and it can help you when it comes to being objective. It can be hard to develop a different perspective on your emotions and your tendencies on a daily basis, because it's hard to see things outside of yourself. It's hard to see yourself from the outside looking in. But when you have a journal and you have kept track of your emotions, of your feelings, of the situations that you're going through, it becomes a lot easier because you see it in front of you. Let me ask you this. For how many of us, right? And I got to plead. Fifth, how many of us is it hard to see, ourselves from the outside looking in? Fifth, with a journal, you can record what triggers you. You can record what caused such a strong emotion, whether that's good or bad. You can record, how did you respond? How did you feel emotionally? How did you feel physically? Journaling is going to open you up to yourself. You're able to see your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions physically right there on the page. That's going to make reflection a whole lot easier. It's going to make remembering a whole lot easier. You now have something to go back to, and that's going to help you be more objective, because when things calm down, you're able to go back, read, and see, oh, okay, this is how I felt in this situation. This is what was going on with me physically in this situation. This is why I was pacing around the room. This is why I was jittering with my hands. When you take note of what's going on, that's when you can say, okay, I can be objective. I can see what's happening here. And write everything. Write everything. Nothing is off limits. This is for your personal. So nothing should be off limits. You will see your true patterns and your tendencies when you take note of everything. You'll see which situations bring you down. You'll see which ones lift you up. And then you'll see what's the most difficult to tolerate. So what is, I just couldn't let go of this. You'll see those things that you let slide. I didn't speak up in this case. I didn't speak up for myself in this situation. Write down and pay attention to the people and the situations that push your button. Write about them, and try to write about them directly after they happen to you. If you're able to. If you're able to, write about them directly after they happen to you. This keeps all the details fresh so you don't miss anything, but also the more information that you have, the more you can learn. You want to be able to remember exactly what happened, but the more information that you have, the more you can learn. Record those physical sensations that you felt alongside those strong emotions that you were having. This is going to deepen your understanding of yourself and what's going on and how you react into those situations. All of this is going to help make you more self-aware. Number 8, I love this one. This one you hear a lot of people say. A lot of successful people say this, not in exactly these words. But number 8, don't be fooled by a bad day. They'll say never get too low. We all have bad days. We all have those days that get you in a funk and they seem like nothing can get you out of it. There's actually a reason for this. Days like this can put a dark cloud over all of your emotions and feelings. Why? Because they cause your brain to lose sight of the good things that are going on. Remember, I talked about that snowball effect. This is that. You know, when you get stuck in a funk and you're having a bad day and you have that sensation that nothing can pull you out of it, that is that snowball effect of negativity. It's your brain saying, there's nothing good going on in my life. We know that ain't true, but that's the way that your brain takes those emotions. It takes those emotions and it runs with it. So understanding what's going on, not letting those bad days keep you stuck in that pattern of negativity, that's what's going to help you get out of those funks. You got to understand what you're going through, even if you can't completely control it, even if you can't change it. This lessens the effect of it, of that negativity, by increasing your self-awareness. Acknowledge that you're having a bad day. Acknowledge that you're in a bad mood. That's going to keep it from affecting everything around you. Remind yourself, your mood is temporary. That's why it's called a mood. Moods swing, moods shift. So do not think that this negative emotion that you're going through is going to last forever. And once you remind yourself, yes, this is temporary, it will pass once you allow it to. It will pass once you allow it to. Don't try to force it. Allow it to pass in its time. Also, don't try to make important decisions when you're stuck in a funk. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're stuck in a funk, that's what's leading your behavior. So you don't want to make any, crucial or important decisions based upon your bad day. That could lead to larger mistakes, and we don't want those. We don't want those. Instead, reflect and try to learn something from that bad day so that it doesn't happen the same way again. Try to learn what triggered that bad day. Try to understand, okay, well, why did I have a bad day? Where did it all start? Where did it take a turn? Where did it persist? And then try to find ways in which you can lessen that. Try to find ways in which you can change that around. Number 9, don't be fooled by a good day either. And the successful people will say, don't get too high. So the idea is, don't ever be too low. Don't ever get too high. Don't fly too close to the sun. Don't be Icarus. And I would say that, a good day or a good mood, it can deceive you just as much as a bad one. Maybe even more. A good day or a good mood, it can make it easy to do something that you'll regret. Remember, I talked about it before, that's celebrating too much. A good mood can give you a false sense of security. You have to remember, you are not invincible. So just because something good happens, it does not mean that you can just go out here and do whatever you want to. I'm going to say 5th on this. A good day can cause you to make some real impulsive decisions. 5th. It can cause you to ignore potential consequences of your actions because you have that false sense of security. So stay aware. Stay aware of your good mood, but don't let it make you make foolish decisions just because you're in a good mood. Okay, ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of celebrating, but don't celebrate so much that you now taking yourself up out of your hookup because you just want to celebrate so much. Don't let your good day fool you either. Number 10, ask yourself why you do the things you do. And really ask yourself. Emotions, they're going to come when they come. Pause. Super pause. And emotions are funny because, they're not necessarily going to come when you want them to. Pause again. I can sit here and be like, you know what? I'm gonna be happy this whole stream. And then the whole stream, I'm not happy at all. Because you can't force it, right? You can't force an emotion upon yourself. Now you can decide, hey, I'm gonna be in a good mood, but you can't just necessarily be like, yeah, I'm gonna be ecstatic and happy the whole time. No, something is going to have to trigger that emotion, and it's gonna happen when it happens. It's not just gonna be just because you said so. Your self-awareness will grow enormously when you seek out the source of your feelings and begin to ask yourself, why? Ask yourself this: why did the emotion come about? What led to this? Where did it come from? And if it came out of nowhere, why did it come out of nowhere? What motivated you to do something out of character? Did these specific emotions play a part in your behavior? Stress, anger, joy, sadness, relief, anxiety. Your emotions clue you into things for you to understand about yourself. And that's the reason you ask yourself why. Paying attention and asking yourself good questions about why you do the things you do, that's enough right there to increase your self-awareness. Now, it takes practice and it takes time, it takes patience and grace and giving yourself credit for small victories. But when you really sit and you really reflect and you really ask yourself some good questions, that's when the self-awareness starts to kick in. So ask yourself some things like this: when was the first time this emotion or behavior came about? Has anything changed in how you react since the first occurrence? First time you were anxious, what happened? Okay, it's been 5-10 years now. Now when you get anxious, what happens? Are they different? And if so, why? If not, why? Who or what causes these reactions? Why do they cause these reactions? Is there a deeper reason why you react the way you do? Is there something from your past where, somebody does something and it triggers you in that way? All of these are good questions that you can ask yourself. Now, they're tough questions, but they're good questions, and they're going to force you to answer in a way that's going to increase your self-awareness. When you force yourself to answer these types of questions, it's the key to increasing your self-awareness. All right, I have to look at why I acted the way I acted. That right there, that self-reflection right there, that's what's going to increase your self-awareness. That's what's going to help you increase your emotional intelligence. Number 11, visit your values. It's easy to lose track of yourself in a busy life. Very easy. We all have lots of things that we have to keep up with. We've got friends, we've got family, we've got work, we've got bills. Some of us, not me, but some of us have kids, newborns, babies, toddlers, full-blown children, teenagers. We've got to focus on our health as well. The list goes on. Balancing everything, it can be difficult, and it keeps your attention focused outward rather than you focusing inward. You have very little time to focus on yourself. So it's very easy to lose sight of the things that are important to you. Talking about like your core values and your beliefs, or just simply things that you like to do. How many of us have things that we have let slip because we put the focus and emphasis on the other aspects of our life? Fifth, I'm gonna use myself as an example right quick. So I love basketball. Love it. Love to watch basketball, love to play. And I have been trying to get back into basketball. Really, I have said so over the past couple of years, but really this year I've really been wanting to do it. I got back into playing a little bit at the end of 2025. Not in the same way that I wanted to, but I at least was on the court. And I had wanted to join a league starting at the beginning of this year. I took on those other projects, so my time didn't allow for me to join that league. One of the reasons was the time during the league was also the time I had class. I paid for these classes, so I did not want to miss class to go play basketball. So I had to do something else. Now, I wanted to get back into it. I just didn't have the time. I'm just using this as an example of, this is something where I kind of let it slip because my focus was on other things. How many of us have those sorts of things? It's important that we do things that are important to ourselves. It makes us feel valuable as humans. And when we don't, we can oftentimes get overwhelmed by all the other things that we have going on. And that is when things start to go left. They can. We try to do the balancing act so well, but every now and then there's a plate that's going to fall off the top of the spinner. And when we get overwhelmed, we oftentimes say and do things that are out of our norm, or they might not align with our values and who we are. Let me use this as an example. I'll go back to the manager yelling at the coworker. They're yelling at somebody over something small. Normally, we might let it slide, or we might brush past it, or we might handle it differently. But because, let's say the manager was overwhelmed, because they're overwhelmed, that little thing, that molehill is now a mountain. And it was the tip of the iceberg in terms of their anger that set them off. How many of us do this? How many of us, we put our health, our physical health, our emotional health on the back burner because we feel like we're overwhelmed and we have other things going on. Fifth, we skip the gym because we feel overwhelmed by the week. Definitely fifth. I need to go to the gym tonight. You have to take time for yourself in order to make sure that you're good. Check in with yourself and make sure that you are staying on top of your own personal, mental, and physical health. Health is wealth. And you want to make sure that you are doing things that are important to you so that you can feel valuable. Back to the number 7, the writing down. Jot down your values and beliefs. Write them down on a piece of paper or somewhere, and then evaluate your recent moods, your recent emotions, and your recent actions to see if they align with those values. And if not, it's time to make a change. If they don't, it is time to make a change. I would say you repeat this periodically just so that you can maintain yourself and create good habits. Number 12, check yourself. This kind of goes along perfectly with number 11, but check yourself. Self-awareness is mostly internal. It's mostly an internal thing, but the outside world can hold clues that you need when it comes to understanding what's going on inside of you. So check yourself. What are we talking about here? Remember when I did that video where I talked about why image matters? This is why I got this shirt on today. I feel like I look pretty good. But remember when I talked about why image matters? Because how you feel, your emotional state, is oftentimes reflected in how you look. Your facial expressions, your posture, your demeanor, your clothes, even your hair. Those all speak to your mood and your disposition. Now, your physical appearance, that's going to be the most clear and straightforward depiction of your mood. Most clear. If you're out in the world and you got on sweatpants, your hair all over the place, and you got some raggedy old shirt on, it can depict that you're either far too comfortable because you were outside looking a hot mess, or you're not putting in any effort into your appearance. And in extreme cases, it can kind of depict that you've given up. That's just being honest. But on the flip side, overdressing, always being put together, you never have a hair out of place, this can depict a lot as well. It depicts a lot of effort. Some might say almost too much effort. Maybe you're never comfortable, and that's not always a good thing. It is a good thing to look put together. It is a good thing to look nice. I also think that it's important that in some situations, not all, but in some situations, you have a different look to depict that you are comfortable. I believe in wearing suits. I talked about suit Saturdays. I don't necessarily want to wear a suit every day. How many of you all have seen the show How I Met Your Mother? There's a character, his name is Barney, and Barney talks about why he wears a suit every day, all day. What's wild about Barney's character, now I understand why he wears the suit. He used to be somebody who, he did the quote unquote hippie thing, and he had the ratty hair that went everywhere, and he would wear the t-shirts that had holes, and the sweatpants, and the hippie pants and all of that. And then his girlfriend got took by somebody in a suit. So then Barney decided, okay, I'm gonna wear a suit every single day, all day, even to bed. His pajamas was pajama suits. That's a little bit wild, because now you ain't never comfortable, and you're putting too much effort. You're trying too hard. So it's not always a good thing to always be so put together. And when you see Barney's character in How I Met Your Mother, he's got a lot of crazy behavior. I'll put it that way. He's got a lot of crazy behavior. But, some of that comes from the trauma and all of those sorts of things. But I'm using that as an example of, yes, he's dressed nice, but when you peel back those layers, there's a lot of issues there. He's portraying the extreme of this section. Too much effort, trying too hard, and chasing perfection. Constantly insecure about his looks and image. And that can be a real big thing. So you want to have like a nice happy medium sometimes. Now there's situations that, you gotta have your image looking real good. You want to portray that confidence. You want to portray that good demeanor and all of that. Nobody said you gotta wear a suit 24/7. Pajama suits is crazy work. I'm good on that. Now I'll have me a pajama set, but a pajama suit, a pajama vest and all that, no, I'm cool. Now, your demeanor. Your demeanor also says a lot about your mood. But here's the thing with demeanor. The message can get kind of twisted up though. Let's say you're meeting somebody for the first time, or you're in an interview. Those situations, they can naturally cause nervousness. And that can lead you to doing one of two things. You're either very cautious of your words, so you're pretty quiet. Now, some might take that as you're uncomfortable, or you're standoffish or aloof. It could just be you being quiet because you're not comfortable in the situation yet. On the flip side, if you talk too much, instead of somebody recognizing that you might be a little bit nervous, so you're just kind of blurting things out, it can come off as being overzealous. So when it comes to demeanor, both of these can be seen as insecure, but when it comes to demeanor, the message might be a little bit harder to figure out. Building your self-awareness, you want to take notice of your moods and how they affect your appearance and your demeanor. Is your image and your presence one you have chosen? So you picked it and you said, this is what I'm doing today. Or is it something that's created by your current mood? Are you feeling a little bit less confident, so you want to get a little overdressed? Or are you feeling a little bit less confident, so you get underdressed? That's how your mood might dictate what you wear. Do you have a default or a standard look? Okay, I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling pretty neutral today. This is my standard look. Do you have that? When you check on yourself, you're helping yourself figure out your mood and how you are going to depict yourself, but that is what helps make you more self-aware. Ask yourself this, and not all of these questions are about your image, but ask yourself this at the end of the day. What went great today? What did you learn today? What did you do in pursuit of your goals? What is a lesson you could learn from today? What influenced your mood today and how? Did my image and demeanor project confidence, intelligence, and assertiveness? Why or why not? When you can answer all of those questions, and I'm not saying you have to answer them all at one time, but when you can answer those questions, those are the types of questions that are helping you build up that self-awareness. Number 13, spot your emotions in books, movies, and music. Use your interests and entertainment to spot things about yourself. Now, I'm not just saying you go and watch something simply because, oh, you think you gonna see yourself in it. But a lot of times that's kind of what we do, right? We watch things that we can relate to, or we find things entertaining because in some way or another, we can relate to it, or we have some sort of interest in it. When you go and you watch that thing that entertains you, keep an open mind and be open to noticing things as they come. You might come across a character and you be like, he kind of act like me. Look for those sorts of things. Pay attention to books, shows, movies, and music for the situations you can relate to. Now let me ask y'all this. Fifth again, how many of us have a breakup song or a breakup playlist that we listen to when we either just broke up with a shorty or we in a bad mood? How many of us have that feel-good movie where we almost know all the words, we can recite it word for word because it makes us feel good, because it has those things that we can relate to? This is going to help you when it comes to self-awareness. That song that has lyrics or it has a certain tone where you use it to relate to your mood. Movies and shows, we often relate to them because they tend to mirror our thoughts and our feelings and our values. Use these things to learn about yourself and discover those feelings that might be hard to communicate. You might come across a situation where it's something you just went through and you see it in a show and you're like, man, I really didn't know how to talk to that person about this till I saw this show. Now I can go and tell them, or I can show them and be like, this is how I felt. They show you the words that you might have been looking for in that instance, but you couldn't find them. I'll use myself for an example again. I used to like to, and I still kind of do, but I used to like to talk about like my mood and things like that using music. I used to use music to portray what kind of mood I was in. And I still do that sometimes. I have numerous playlists and a lot of them are designed around my mood. Am I in a happy mood? Am I in a, somewhat calmer mood? Am I in my driving mood? I got a drive playlist. I got a playlist for when I work out because I want to feel excited and motivated. I have an inspirational playlist where it's like, these are songs where it kind of makes me think or makes me want to, build something, those sorts of things. And that's how I do it when it comes to relating music to my mood. That's one of the reasons why I love music so much. I can put things and arrange it for my mood, and it's not even always necessarily for me to feel better, but just something I can use and I relate to, so I'm not just dwelling on something or it helps increase the mood. It's all those sorts of reasons. Media can be your gateway into deeper emotions, so use them. You watch TV anyway, use them. Number 14, seek feedback. Seek feedback. All your experiences travel through your lens. And as I've covered before, a lot of times your lens is tainted by your own personal biases. Your own personal biases. That can keep you from being truly objective with yourself. Also, there's usually a difference between how you see you and how others see you. And the in-between is full of lessons that can build up that self-awareness. Self-awareness is both inside out and outside in. And the latter is only achieved through receiving feedback. You will not know the way the outside looks at you unless you ask them. So go and ask them. I've done a video on seeking feedback. Go to your trusted friends, those trusted family members, co-workers, mentors, and supervisors, and ask them for some feedback. I would say try to find at least one person of the opposite sex who you trust and ask them for feedback as well, because they can give you a whole different dynamic and a whole different perspective. And I will say this, you're going to have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because sometimes the feedback that you're going to get is going to come at the cost of your feelings. It might make you feel some type of way to get that feedback from those people, but be open to it. Be open to it and remain calm. Because if they truly love you and you trust them, they're not going to tell you something, that's going to send you off the deep end. They're going to have good things to say as well. But search for that feedback and try to put your feelings to the side while you receive it, so that you can remain objective. And when you ask them for feedback, get specific examples, get those specific situations, and then look for similarities between their answers. Don't just ask one person. Go and ask multiple and then see, okay, are they saying similar things? Feedback shows you how others perceive you and how they experience you. And this is going to help you get the entire picture of yourself, especially when it comes to how your actions affect others. That's going to help you reach a level of self-awareness that most people never reach. Being open to feedback is a rare skill, but it's a very important one. And most people never reach that level of self-awareness because they don't want feedback. So when you remain open to the feedback and you have those people who you trust, who are giving you sound advice and sound feedback, that's when it helps you build up to a new level of self-awareness. All right, last but not least, certainly not least, we got number 15. This one I would probably say is one of the most important and the most difficult to do. I know I read a lot, and a lot of them I said that on. A lot of them I said these were going to be difficult. This was going to be a big obstacle, such and such. This one right here, it is last but certainly not least. And when I say it's one of the most important, I think it is, and I certainly think it is the most difficult. But it is to get to know yourself under stress. Why is it one of the most difficult? It is hard to stay focused, let alone self-aware, during times of stress. Stress can throw us completely off and into unfamiliar territory. I'm just gonna let that land. It can throw us completely off. I know it can for me. We can have a stressful event pop up on us, especially if it's sudden. Oh man, it can throw us completely off. This is one of those things where I was talking about earlier, where you thought you were working on stuff, and then here comes stress rearing its ugly head, and now you are in emotional crisis mode all over again. That leads me to this next question. Do you recognize the warning signs that stress is looming over you? This is where that physical comes into play. Do you listen to your body and your mind? Do you look for the mental and physical signals? You start jittering, you start sweating, you start having that nervous energy out of nowhere. These can be signs of stress. And this is your mind telling your body, telling you that you need to slow down and maybe take a break. Learn what your responses are to stress and try to understand them. You get that pit in your stomach, you got that nervous energy. Try to understand why. Try to understand, okay, am I stressed out? Are bills due? Are the bills due? And that's why I feel that pain in my chest. Take the time to recognize the signals and recharge yourself when needed. But get to know who you are under stress. How do you react under stress? Are you likely to act outside of the norm during stress? I know that happens for most of us. Fifth, I plead the fifth on that one. This is one of the most important ones. Knowing yourself under stress, knowing yourself how you behave under stress, even knowing. We're just talking about self-awareness. We're not talking about necessarily changing yet, but even knowing that's the first step to increasing that self-awareness. So that's the end of the 15. That's the end of that topic for today. I am going to move into album of the week. I am going to talk about album of the week. We are going to do the musical piece because I want to end it. I don't want to end it off talking about stress. I don't want to do that. So I am going to talk about the album of the week. I'm going back to a throwback album. I actually chose this album because I was driving in the car and a song from the album popped up, and it was a song that I hadn't heard in a while off of this album. And then I had that moment where I was like, hey, yo, this album though was good. So I had to go back and play the whole album. And I was like, man, like I forgot about how many bangers that this album had. All right, I said it too many times without saying the name, but I am talking about Yo Gotti, and the album is called The Art of Hustle. This is my favorite Yo Gotti album, definitely. It was very versatile, very dynamic album, and it really solidified Gotti in the mainstream space. This album, it had hold on right quick, let me look. Down in the DM on it, it had Law with E40. It had General with Future. This album was good. And none of those songs are even my favorite. But I love this album. This album combines lyrics and street knowledge on some really dope beats. It's very well thought out and planned album. And I would actually have to go as far to say is it has the perfect features on it. Now, my favorite song is probably Imagine That has no features. That's just Yo Gotti. My next favorite song on here would be Smile. And then number three is maybe a tie. It might be a tie between Pay the Price or Hunt It with featuring Pusha T. Sorry, y'all. I was looking down at my phone to get the titles, but this album was really, really good. Shout out to Yo Gotti. Go check it out. The Art of Hustle. I'm gonna post a photo up here while I'm talking so y'all can see it. But this album was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So y'all go check it out. Y'all go drop some comments. Let me know what y'all think about the album. Also, let me know what you all think about these topics. Like I said, I apologize. I know this was a longer video, probably about 2 hours, but I think it was worth it. I liked these topics. I also liked the strategies that the book suggested. And hey, I challenge you all. Try 5. Try 3, but try 5. Let me know if it works for you. Let me know if anybody relates to this. I want to say thank you to my listeners. I appreciate all the feedback I've been receiving. Thank you to all my customers who drop reviews on my channel, on my Google page. Thank you all. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. We building each other up over here, and I want to say thank you to all those people who have already subscribed. Let's keep it going. We build it as we fly it over here. And as I always say, love y'all, but peace. Catch y'all on the next one.